Andy hates predictions, but we both love celebrating the new year with the arrival of spring. So, in this episode, I drag her kicking and screaming into sharing our predictions for where and how we Hoodoos will focus our emotional, financial, intellectual, and creative spell work for 2023. Hey, welcome back to the new Hoodoo, the ultimate podcast for modern mystics and spiritual seekers. Whether you're new to the world of diasporic and Africana spiritual practices, or if you're looking to take your magic to the next level, we have got you covered. From tarot readings to candle magic, we'll share all of our sisterly secrets, insights, and most importantly, we show you where our perspectives and experiences as modern Black women intersect with our practice of Hoodoo for healing, self-expansion, and transformation. I am your host, Halicue HANNA, and right over there is my amazing co-host, little sister, and best friend, Andy Anderson. You don't have to practice or travel this spiritual path alone. We are so glad you're joining us on this unique journey into the world that we call the new Hoodoo. Hey, it's Halicue. So look, I'm going to keep it 100. I am learning to edit our episodes all by my lonesome. So thank you in advance for bearing with us, staying patient, and for preparing for what from time to time might be a rough audio ride. All right, I know y'all are ready to rock, and we are so glad to be back. Here we go. We are feeling the energy and the excitement of new beginnings. Andy and I feel like it's time to dust off our vision boards, kind of begin manifesting our dreams into realities. Spring is a perfect time for this instead of January 1st. I still don't understand why we do that. And so in this episode, we're going to be discussing our predictions.
Colonization and racism.
That's right. Colonization, white supremacy, and racism. So in this episode, we're going to be discussing our predictions our real predictions, because for us, this is the beginning of the new year. For finances, work, entrepreneurship, mental health, intellectual stimulation, creativity, our passion projects, emotional health, and basically this year's evolution for the modern spiritualist. So let us go ahead and get into the conversation. And to open up the conversation, I have a little quote. And this is a quote from one of Andy's favorite authors and one of mine too. But Andy was definitely the one that turned me on to this unbelievably powerful woman, this spiritualist, this author. And so Andy, I'm going to read it. I'm not going to make you guess because y'all, in addition to being a co-host, I'm a talent manager. I have to keep my talent, my sister over here, happy. So I like to surprise her, but I also don't want her going completely off of me. So I'm going to lead us into this gently, but it's from one of her favorite authors. And the quote is, "Spring is the time when the land wakes up, when the earth is reborn and the cycle of life begins anew. It's a time of renewal and rejuvenation. It's a time when we shed the old and make way for the new. For Black women, this time of year is especially meaningful as we connect with the energy of the earth and harness its power to heal and transform ourselves and our communities." That author and magical woman and natural woman is Louisa Teish. And the quote is from Carnival of the Spirit, one of Andy's favorite books, Seasonal Celebrations and Rites of Passage. So Andy, what do you think about that opening quote as we get started?
Well, that's from Carnival of the Spirit. So that is an amazing book where she talks about looking at, people say the wheel of the year, but looking at, I even hesitate to say wheel of the year because it's even got these defined, role to it. It explains the cycle of nature for us that are indigenous people. It explains the nature cycle, right, of how nature passes time, if you will, in a very beautiful way. So I like that. She has these kind of visions that she speaks into words that are really, really nice in her books. It's like poetry. So it's really nice.
I love Tesh from the first one I read, it was a long time ago, but I reread it when Andy and I got ready to start the podcast, called Jambalaya. And we especially love it. And Andy pointed this out because she talks about a way of talking, right? That the way we talk in our family, before we read that term, I think we called it talk fighting, but she is an absolute favorite of ours. And I'm going to manifest that we're going to be able to interview her on the podcast one of these days. So I'm putting that out there into the universe. So Andy, I'm going to jump into maybe a question or a topic. And y'all, we're going to take this the way y'all know I love taking things. Y'all know I'm a tarot pro. So I love getting started with earth, air, fire, and water. And so using that as a skeleton and foundation for our conversation. So let's get started with air. And in the tarot, air correlates to mental energies, our thinking, our wit, our intellect, anxieties, cares, concerns, the way we communicate verbally and non-verbally. And we know, especially as Black and brown women and as spiritualists and as natural women, that mental health and intellectual stimulation are really, really important aspects of our overall wellness. Andy, what do we think are do you want to get started with like our predictions for spiritualists, hoodoos, those of us that are into ATRs, and what we see in terms of what we're going to be manifesting, what we're going to be focusing on for the care of our mental health, or even for intellectual stimulation?
I think this is hard because my sister always, first of all, you talk about surprising me. And I feel like every time you do that open, I'll be like, bitch, we've been talking about what? That's so fancy. That's not what we said we was going to talk about on the phone.
That is exactly what we said we're talking about. We're talking about predictions.
Okay, make it fancy.
Exactly
I like a bookmark. Okay. I like a favorable editing session.
Okay, note to self. This is Andy. I love the way Andy, I can tell from the look in her
that
face.
Shit then.
When she looked down, I was like, fuck, she didn't like that question. Damn.
No, she didn't. I said she got some fleur-de-lis on it. We don't do this and do this and that. Girl, we said we were going to talk about such and such.
We are, but girl, come on, you and I both know.
We are. I'm just saying, you got a way of making it sound. It's like, I imagine people who go into the book with you, Jay-Z, what we going to do? We're going to lay down a couple of tracks and come in there with a soliloquy. What?
No, we just.
What?
Andy,
I didn't come prepared.
Okay, you know we have been talking for a long time about.
No, Halicue always likes to draw me into predictions. I don't like predictions.
She doesn't like predictions.
But here we go.
Okay, so don't make it a prediction. What do you think?
It's not a prediction. It's something that I see that's kind of like a trend. So, like in my business, the way I'm kind of built, my superpower, the thing I bring to the table, is kind of being able to see how the bigger picture and how things work and how they fit together. Mm-hmm. I've talked about it a whole lot that and people talk about it like this post-COVID, we almost had like a super winter, if you will, right? Like a super hibernation period where all of us were in. And a lot of you are probably saying, well, Eddie, we've been out in these streets. Like we've been out in the streets for 2 years, but you've been out in this somewhat bit of an augmented reality. We've been out in the streets in this world where we really are under the belief like, oh, we've changed work systems, right? Like maybe we paused capitalism a little bit. Maybe we shine this light on mental health and that we're going to make this great shift. What I am starting to read and all that's happening is like, yes, we are shifting, but that also means that there's going to be a reverberation, if you will, or our enemies are going to double back on us. Mm-hmm. Just because things are swinging in a new direction doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a hitch to the pendulum swing, right? Just because you're out of the matrix, like if you saw this, if you followed all of the Matrix stories, because they got hard to follow, like after, you saw a certain episode, kind of like one of the themes of resurrection is somebody had to go back into the matrix to save those of us that were already out. There was a deal that was made that said, hey, we're not going to eat up your only city that you've left here, which was Zion, but we've got to make a deal. You got to put Neo back in the box. And Neo, who is kind of like a Jesus figure, did exactly that. He and Trinity went back into the Matrix. They sacrificed themselves. For all of us, they had to stay out of the Matrix. But what you don't understand is the Matrix still exists. Like us that are true purists in the movie, we're like, well, fuck that. What about us that are still plugged in, right? Like if you're free from the Matrix, that's great. But some of us will always have those that are plugged back in. And Lord knows, I got a lot of people that still serving as batteries in the Matrix. So I think there comes a time where we have to realize that even though you're spiritual or spiritually enlightened, or you've been liberated, or you're doing the work along your healing journey, that you are still going to have these reverberations of regression, right? And it's paying attention to the different type of view that's needed every time you have those regressions. So, when we talk about yacht energy, which I talked about last year, that's a lot of swirling. It's beautiful. It's display field. What I'm talking about, and it's definitely a certain type of war, Oya takes you on, right? Like she takes out her machete, she takes out her blade. She's kind of like Kali Ma. She don't give a fuck. The one with that hold up head. She really kind of gets into the warrior essence of her battle.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a different type kind of war that I feel personally, especially when we talk about my journey too. I'm thinking of more of an Ogun type energy. Like the warrior spirit that also has this balance where we're quietly in the forest, right? So we're contemplating, we're in this place of serenity and rest, but yet we know we're always going to be called on at any time to be a warrior and a defender of this new way of life that we have, right? There's still these battlegrounds that are out here. But how do you keep from that battleground from becoming your personality?
Yep.
No one wants to be warlike. Like the great thing about being able to be a warrior is that there's a place for you to regress into and have peace and to recover and to go back and to fight the good fight. Yeah. So that's kind of the long game I'm in, Q. Like, you're doing this warring and you're doing this battling. You're trying to get yourself to this new level of consciousness. You're trying to bring people you love with you. You're trying to change your world to shape around that. How do you do that and have that quiet fire burning, but still keep yourself sustained and keep your peace? Because a lot of things that we got to do to get peace aren't necessarily compatible with peace, right? Like if there's a certain point, Halicue starts laughing because she's like, "Yeah, girl, you know what I'm going through." Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff you have to threaten people with to get your peace. Yeah. And to keep your peace is also something in itself that you have to recover from, because nobody, I don't care if you are a child of Ogun, no one wants to be in those warlike states for a suspended period of time. And if you do, that's when we tell you to go to therapy, because there's something.
Especially if you come from trauma. Like,
exactly, you learn.
Trauma, like, because a lot of us, like, we become avoidant. Like, that's my personal, like, isolation and fucking avoidant. I don't really want no problems. But having been on the other side of finally being pushed to a point where I had to say something, I had to do something, and it wasn't pretty. Like when the communication, which is still in air, had to happen, where I spoke my truth and said, "This is what I am going to. This is what's going to happen from this point on." Damn, it was good on that other side. It was absolutely, really, really, really fucking worth it. But it was no effing fun. Like,
and it did mean that you got on the other side that, you were just there and things were going to be fine, right? No. It's like that's not how it happens, right? Like sometimes you'll get there and you'll do the healing, and then you wake up those days and you find like, "Excuse me, sir, I'm still aggravated. Life is still kicking my ass. What is going on, sir? I've done all of this healing. Why are these things still feel like they're happening to me?" And that's when you realize that, okay, well, now you've got some new coping mechanisms. There's new level of things that you have to cope with, right? Just because your world enlightened and transcends doesn't mean that you don't have to still continue to figure out how to navigate. And so sometimes spiritually, you feel like a kid in a car, like, damn, are we there yet? Like, are we there yet? Like you said. And that's when our spiritual guys be like, "No, I ain't say that. I didn't say we were going to be here in a little bit. I ain't say we were going to be 8 hours is 8 hours.
I told you to sit in the back and ride. That's what I told you. Why don't you just ride?
I said 8 hours before you had to go to the bathroom 5 times. I said 8 hours before you cried and said you was tired and you didn't want to drive anymore." So like all of those things are contingent, right? Like, so that's that kind of, to me. So when I think of predictions, I think that there's a lot of us, even though we're transcending and we're changing this reality that we're in, right? More and more people are being.
And you were talking about the end of a cycle, like clearly, right? Like we're coming to the end. But girl, there's cards for that, and this is a part of my prediction. I held up the 9 of the. We're, as far as I'm concerned, around our around anxieties, cares, concern, the things that Black women, like especially Black and brown women, like not only are we carrying on our hearts, like, but we're carrying in our minds, like the stress, the anxiety. I love talking about like the 9 of Swords, which shows this, it really shows like a figure in bed, swords above their head, which basically represent like our anxieties, our cares, our concerns, our stress. So much so that we're carrying so much that maybe we don't even acknowledge that, or maybe just always in the background. And finally, the discomfort, the pain from what we are dealing with and what we're carrying in our minds and in our hearts, we get to, like Andy said, we get to the 10. This is where we stick a freaking fork in it. This is my prediction. We done. We know what it is. We understand what we have been doing. We understand the burdens we have been carrying, how it has had an effect on our mental health, and we are done. Done. We are at the 10 of fucking swords. Andy, I don't know if you can see this because Andy don't really even like.
Because Halicue knows
Andy
done
don't
is
like
my
fucking-
new address.
Yeah.
So if all of you don't know, that tarot card is where I live now. So that's how you can reach me.
Yeah, this card shows like 10 swords stuck in the back of a figure that is now dead on the beach, which as far as I'm concerned mean we ready to put a fork in it.
You just change that into a business card, like a name tag.
Yeah, we done.
This is where
we finished. We're done.
That's where I am right now.
We know what it is, and it's time to end this shit. We know we have clarity of mind. We know exactly what's happening to us. And all of the swords, all of the things that like these swords represent in the 9 of swords, stress, anxieties, cares, concern. We are tired. We are tired of holding it, and we are finished. We are done. We know what is our fault. We know where fault lies someplace else, and we're ready. We're done. We're ready. We're done. It's a wrap. We're putting blame where it belongs. You are no longer able to gaslight us, manipulate us, lie, and have us go along with the lie like we don't know exactly what the end.
It feels cataclysmic in that, and I say this because there's going to be a lot of people out there. Some of them may be haters. I ain't going to call them by names, but you know who you are. Because when you say that it's cataclysmic, people want to act like, oh, it was a surprise. Yeah, look at this place you done came to and this awakening you done come to. I mean, you're just this new person. No, Ninja, I'm not new. This is something that it's been cooking, it's been processing. I've been in pain over, I've been laboring over. If you are a creator, you've been trying to birth it. If you are a new business owner, you've been trying to get it off your feet. If you've been subjected to it, you have been struggling under this abuse, like whatever it is. Yeah. It feels like it's a catharsis maybe to other people because they have not been laboring. Correct. And I won't say burden, because some of you, like if we're creators, you might have been laboring under something beautiful. Our children are something beautiful, right? But they are a labor. Indeed. That's the name of the process, right? Yeah. Even our art, our craft, right? Like our podcast, there are sometimes, I know these past couple of years where Halicue feels like we were treading in water, and I could see her frustration. I could see her wanting to birth this thing. And she will tell you, I've been the most aggravating shit, like, girl, it's going to come when it comes. Yeah. It's going to come when it comes. It's going to come when it comes. And then it seems like when we are probably hit with the most stuff or hit it with the most life challenges, when we really start just talking about that on the air, then these things click, because there's 20,000 women that say, oh, me too. Yeah. Like that real stuff that y'all start talking about, like that is the kind of stuff that we collectively are coming into.
What I'm seeing and I'm feeling and I'm thinking is going to be happening with a lot of us around our creativity and around our passion projects, and the way it's going to take form is through channels. Like, I really think like channels and brand, I don't care whether you have a business or not. We have all of the tools, a lot of which certainly feel magic, especially as we look at things like artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT. I think all of us, all women, whether we're, and especially those of us that are spiritual, we actually have tools that enable us to create our own universe, define our own philosophies, and share them with everybody, whether it's TikTok.
And ensure our independence. Hate to say that, because sometimes you have to.
So that our story gets out. So if anybody wonders anything about us, they can plug into, if we want to bring them in, we are really in a position to create those channels and to express, to show who we are, what we're into, whether it's as simple as what kind of bonnets we like to wear, how do we decorate our rooms, like how do we live our lives, like how do we talk to our children, how do we counsel ourselves and other people, and I feel like that is a way to express and create, like to express our creativity and to actually create. I totally see that, truly, whether or not you even have a product to sell. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. You mentioned something, and I'm going to bring it back to creativity and passion projects. It's very important. You brought it up because, I think it's important for us to let people know a lot about our philosophy around our hoodoo, our spirituality, and even why we do this podcast. From the very beginning, we said we do not set ourselves up to be like giving you some type of course or like anything like that. We are talking to you about how our spirituality, how our path and our walk makes our fucking life better, like makes our home life better, our life better, like our how it is the foundation of our happiness. And it's not necessarily about like, hey, does Andy make candles? Like, do we do reversing spells? Do we do road opening work and rituals and that kind of thing? Yes. But so much of it is for our own peace of mind and the happiness in our own home, our own bodies, and with our own families. And so when you mentioned also like children, in addition to thinking that in the future, when it comes to our creativity, our passion projects, how we do that, how we bring that to life. And if you're wondering how to do that, what part of our spirituality and our practice do we use to do that? Sure, there are lots of things. Like when I'm thinking about like the future of this podcast, like what else I'm putting out there, if there's like a new product or new offering, yes, of course, I'm using Andy's road opening candles. I'm using self-love to pour love all over, love all over myself or my children. If there's problems with school, of course, I'm going to use Andy's skull candle and no. But something that's very simple that I want to encourage people to do, and I pulled up the tarot card, the Six of Cups, which is about happy childhood memories, the sights, the sounds, and the smells of childhood. If you don't know where to begin about like that what is that passion project? What is that thing you want to birth and create? I want to encourage you because a lot of you have a lot of them to birth and create, and y'all going to be doing it in 2023. Whether it's on TikTok, whether it's writing your blog, whether it's writing your book, whatever it is, if you don't know how to make that, how to start, go back to childhood. Like what made you happy as a girl? I can't tell you every time Andy.
And if you didn't get a chance to figure out what the fuck made you happy as a child because you just wasn't living that life, because we know that too.
Yeah.
We know that well too.
Yeah.
Start trying the shit. Yeah. Start trying it. They sell tickets to children's shit for you. If you need to borrow a friend's children so you don't feel weird, do that. Borrow a niece, borrow a nephew, pick up a stranger off the street. There are parents willing to give you their children for an hour of peace for no particular reason. But do those things. I never forget. And I tell young women, it's kind of like the same thing when you're looking for love. Date yourself. Right? If you're looking for this thing out there for 2023, like you're looking for this life match, right? You're looking for yourself. It's so funny. I see all these TikToks that are like, oh, myself is a rebellious 12-year-old and never got to wear the shit she wanted to. And now she's got a credit card. I like her. Go with her. Let her midriff out. Let her tatas out. Let her wear short shorts. Keep your job. But you know what I mean? But outside of that, do what makes you happy, and to go. And when Halicue says seek those childhood experiences, if you did not have them, no longer let that be the excuse.
Also, laughter is fire energy. It's fire. It's creativity. It's inspiration. You don't know what you may end up doing out of a fit of laughter. But Andy, you brought up something. You want to make a last point before we pivot over to speaking of before I pivot, shout out to Ariana Mogg, our human design practitioner. That's one of her handles. I love it. Before I pivot to emotional health. So what do we see? What do we feel about our emotional health and evolution in our journey as Black women and as spiritual?
Girl, you want me to be transparent?
Okay. So let me say, okay. All right. So let me do some, let me just,
because I was getting ready to unload. Now you like, hold on. Joy isn't always the main event, because joy can lead you on these crazy adventures that don't get you anywhere, right? So it's also about learning those two things. And so that's my theory about, 2023. You've been given this amazing set of, like, you got the 64 color big ass crayon box that you always beg. Most of my life, I thought I had an 8-pack. I thought I had an 8-pack. I didn't think I had markers. Now I got markers. I got fine markers. I got watercolors. I got paints. I've had children. All these things have happened in life to give you these really nuanced, rich colors, right, of emotion. And what I try to tell folks, you're going to see people that only have 8 crayons that think they are doing the most. You might love those people. You might be related to those people, and it's going to be painful as hell. But what do we do when your babies come from daycare? Oh, that's so pretty.
I didn't even know how you was putting that together, but I see how you just put that together, girl.
That's so cute, girl. Oh, ain't that
I
pretty?
didn't know what you was
I'm
gonna say.
hang it on my wall. Y'all see how y'all didn't know where I was going?
I was
Just like my life. You ain't never gonna figure out where I was going. But that's what I'm saying. There are times in life where you gonna realize you are not gonna help your child become an artist. We celebrate their grade level appropriate work, but if your 7th grader is bringing you home stuff that came like it was in kindergarten, you got an 8. We have to start having
okay to decide you can't be with someone who emotionally ain't got but 8 crayons. Time to go. If you really want to create art, or because the folks that got the 8 crayons can't rock with you. I'm gonna mess up
your mind even worse. It's gonna be folks out here trying to sell you Picassos too that ain't Picassos. They gonna look real, like they understand all types of emotions that they don't.
And a lot of them be talking about their spiritual. Y'all look out there. Like we did a whole episode on fakes, frauds, and fuckery.
That ain't no Basquiat, baby. That ain't no Basquiat. That's just scribbles.
They trying to convince you that they got the capacity.
We use that analogy to say that as you are healing, as you are growing, like there is this, it's kind of sad because with those people, there's this whole rich tapestry of life that they're missing. We talked to you last episode about like crying in the ocean and laughing through like there's this whole wonderful myriad of emotions. Then there are people who are going to get lost in their emotions. And then there are some people who aren't ever going to take the journey at all. It is okay to say that you are done with having a really basic emotional life and that you're ready to do something different. Yeah. Like you have that right? You have your right to change your mind and say, I want to live something that's a fuller experience. You also have a right to say, you know, this emotion that you keep telling me not to color with, it's valid. I'm going to color with red because I'm living in a red place, right? It's okay. Like when Halicue talks about the crevasse, like being in that place. You don't have to be happy when you're not. You have to act like you're happy when you're not. You have to act like you're fulfilled when you're not. Like we're at that age where the doneness it's not just being pissed off and I'm done and throwing your hands up in the air in frustration. It's also.
Let's move over to the last thing. Oh, one of the last things. Pentacles, work, entrepreneurialism, finances, resources, sometimes even our physical body. How do we make money? How do we earn money? What's an investment? What do we even want? Like, what do we, when it comes to resources and assets, like what, I think the paradigm is being turned completely upside down.
We are now living a magical and spiritual community where there are women doing this work. So it's not like they're just helping you with your finances, because that never stuck with me before. They're actually like, let's talk about your feelings around finances. Why do you feel bad about your money?
Shout out to the money witch.
Like my therapist going, sounds like shopping makes you feel good. I bet you if you were in a happier place, you have more money. And I'm sitting there going, you ain't got to talk about me in my face. But
while
it's
I'm paying
new way.
You. It's like I'm paying you to help me tell me about myself.
Even that was another thing, right? Like we as Black women, I can't justify paying for therapy, but yet it's helping me save money. I bet y'all didn't know your therapist will talk to y'all about money. I bet you didn't know your therapist will talk to you about how you get along with the people at your job and how to make better relationships so you can make more money. Like all of that. I'm struggling with somebody now who I'm like, oh yes, therapy helps you in all ways, not just your home life. Those issues you're having on the job probably have something to do with relationships too. Those things are important. So even understanding, sometimes it's not always about, I got to hustle harder. Sometimes it really is about, I got to hustle with more heart. I got to hustle, smarter. I got to hustle with more people who are like me because they are figuring this thing out. I've got folks who I come from the kind of background where I practice law, where I'm like, you want to know someone who's good with money and you in the hood and they got a financial planner? Go find your local drug dealer.
Yeah.
They can do math in their head. Bobo Nim up the street that you knew since high school, that you knew what Bobo was going to do when he got 20.
They can help you with those differential equations.
Bobo paid for that truck in cash. Bobo ain't paying interest rates. So you get what I'm saying? For where you are in life,
Yeah.
You know, and I dig that. I dig that we have therapists out here now that have been sex workers. I dig that we've got folks who are, yes, I learned, my inspiration for becoming a money manager is because every person I stripped with, I managed their money and they now all have 401ks. Like those are the kind of come up stories that to me show real ingenuity, because that third generation rich guy who invented something or actually said he invented something that somebody he paid to invent for him, that's not going to be the way that we manage our money through whatever is happening next in this country. It's going to be us neurodivergent folks. It's going to be us that are in these kind of edges of society. They're going to finish this thing out. So also look in your community for people who have those money success stories too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm trying to think around that. I know I have some feelings around that. Something that I predict is, and not predict, I mean, I'm seeing it kind of in real life in a lot of ways with clients, with like people I know and love. And I'm going to talk about like the tarot card, I think is appropriate for that, around like starting over, about how time isn't even real.
Yes.
Like time's not even real. It's starting the fuck over.
Neither is debt.
No,
neither is a lot of these things that we are stressing over. Like it's imaginary, right? It's imaginary. It is a made up thing.
Totally. And like there are alternative ways to, first of all, I think the way our thinking about what being well resourced is and what it means. I talk about this example all the time. Like there was a time when I think a lot of us kind of, when we thought about our future, what it was we were going to have, that it was going to be some fucking gigantic McMansion with like one of those crazy cribs, swimming pool. Do you remember that, Andy? Like in the late 90s, like early 2000s, when it was like everything that was on was like Sweet 16. Everything was like over the top, or it was like
driving to Dallas every day. I'm trying to think of a TV show like
Cribs,
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that type of.
That was a thing. When now I'm like, what if it's like saving your money to buy an acre of land in the middle of the country and putting a prefab little home on it?
Or girl, what if it's multi-generational? Like it's starting to make more sense for young people not to go out into the world and have a mortgage at 20, or not to go out into the world, right? And try to be managing an acre of property. And what I'm saying is like, and when people say, hey, what are you saying? Don't buy property, don't do these things. No.
Yeah.
Start to think differently about the message of the necessity of these things. Yes. Like us that grew up in the 80s, like everybody had to go to college no matter what. You had to go to a certain college and you had to like break the bank to pay for it.
Yeah.
The banking and the loan industry was the one that was convincing us that had to be the case. Me and Halicue both could have probably went to ITT Tech and been equally as prosperous and great with where we are now. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we have a tendency that there are these life messages that we're given, but without any questioning of the messenger. And we just don't live in a world anymore. It's kind of like I tell you about the political stuff where people kind of like, I don't know now. You just, it behooves you. Ooh, that's an SAT word. That's a $10 word, as Grandpa would say. It is in your best interest.
Yeah.
Right? To just ask those questions around these typical money stories and just start asking yourself, like, why are these money stories? Like, why is this money story? Is this Q talking or is it the bank talking? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, is this what success is? Like, I know for me, I had a lot of hang up over myself. Like, am I where other people who have a law degree would be now? Am I where other people who are doing what I do, where I would be now? Mm-hmm. Or I used to think that, like your cue about saying like having the biggest house on the block or having that.
Yeah.
Now when you think about people who had those homes and the bottoms fell out and they couldn't sell them, right? Girl. Or folks that had these huge homes, but now they had 2 and 3 generations of their family moving back into those homes, right? So it was all relative. Or I had this really great home in the middle of a COVID trap because I live in New York City, right? Because that's where I just had to be versus. So it's kind of one of those things too, that if you're spiritual, you know that things are relative. Yeah. Right. So it's less about this end destination that you got to, where it's more of, do I have the resources I need for where I am in the journey now? Right. Like the resources I needed when my kids were 2 and 3 is different than the resources I need now that they're 47 the internet exists and they barely want to talk to me to her. You know, like, and I say that in a good way, right? Like, but the resources,
they're living their lives, not because they're
like I wouldn't have started a business when they were 2 or 3 or 6 or 7, right? Exactly. But now I have an opportunity to, right? So is my life set up where I'm giving myself the opportunity, or for you guys that are 20 or 30, are you planning so at 47 you have the extra money that if you do want to start a business, you can, right? Yeah. Are you planning, instead of like us where we're like, oh God, we're gonna have to work until we die? I know me and Q both thought that, like, because that's what we saw women our age do. They worked. We just worked until their 70s or 80s. Like now she's in a situation where her and her husband retired. Guess who's emotionally ready for it and who ain't?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I spoke out, talking about somebody else's business, but that's what I'm saying. No, it is, we now have this opportunity to be mentally prepared for it. Because a lot of men out here, they weren't prepared for where women is right now. Women are now preparing for different things.
The tea my sister just spilled. I'm going to elaborate. Correct. There was a time when I'm like that
Kermit the Frog meme. That. Well, it is my business, but you know.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
That is true, girl. Because
don't let it jump up and surprise you.
If you ever told me and Andy were going to start businesses and that we would be so fulfilled and happy when we didn't have to do it. Like when we're like, we thought like that was the way to the comfort, the happiness, the fulfillment. And now it is completely different. You're right. And how I thought, since I'm the homemaker and I'm the one making this investment into our family, that like I'm throwing myself away or my brain doesn't work.
Or that you need to be married so you be prepared to retire. Like that's not the case anymore.
It's not the case no more. Or like, or the only thing that we got to pay off this debt. We got to pay off this loan. We can't move forward if we don't. And now I'm counseling people, fuck them loans. Like seriously, I'm like, fuck them loans. They're not gonna come because they want the money paid back. I personally think.
Because when it comes to PPP, they don't want them from some people, right? Yeah, like we live in this nation where we understand that these rules are like it's who they choose to keep in fear. Right? Yes. It's the fear of the thing that keeps you from progressing. Yeah. I mean, if you want to know, people who started the most successful businesses had to get in a shit ton of debt to do it.
Yeah, to do it.
Right? But nobody talks about that story, though, right?
And Andy, too, this grind culture stuff, this is another prediction I'm going to make. And I feel like I'm seeing evidence of this. We were, like girl boss shit. I'm a grinder. I'm a hustler. I'm at this like I'm at this all the time. I wake up working. I go to sleep thinking about work. I can't even sleep because that's all I'm thinking about is making that money on paper. I anticipate and I predict that we're already doing it, but man, that whole concept of like collaboration versus competition, especially among women, especially among spiritual women, we're about to see some exciting shit. I was just talking with, I just saw an example of this with wonderful, amazing woman who's becoming a good friend. I just love her. She's the owner of Botanical Life, where I read, named Sandy Siegel. It's a beautiful business in Larkspur, California. Gorgeous metaphysical shop, one of the most beautiful ones I've ever seen. There was another woman, like very close by, started her own business. It's kind of similar metaphysical. She's making these amazing products using CBD, gorgeous little jewel of a shop. Rents around here are ridiculous. Like they're ridiculous. And she's realizing I still want to do this business, but I need like a straight job for like lots of reasons. The owner of one of the other businesses says, you know what? I understand that for whatever reason, you feel like you need to go back and get like a straight job. But she was heartbroken because she's like, I don't want to give up this business that I built. So what she's doing is putting like a little area, like a little stand that's her business in the shop of in Sandy's shop, paying a teeny bit of rent, but it's still a business. It's still her dream. It's still her vision, but they're working together in collab to make them both work.
You is saying is critical.
Yeah.
Because I don't find it unusual that all the people that she's talking about in that equation happen to be women. Because we understand community.
Spiritual
hate to
women.
Say it.
Yeah.
If you are spiritual and you don't identify biologically as a woman, you out there supporting community, then that also includes you.
All right. Just before we say goodbye, I want to encourage all of you to really jump into the energy of spring and get creative with your spell work and your spiritual practice. Yours does not have to look like, sound like anyone else's. And there's no aspect of your life that can't be enchanted, deeply rooted in spirit, and therefore improved. Like, for example, like since, and I'll just use myself for an example, like since late November, my work has been very, very, very earth focused. And by that specifically, I mean like learning how to be grounded. I have so much fire energy, but learning how to be grounded, finally strengthening and purifying my physical body. Because y'all, when I started the business, I like packed it on like this, this often is not very active work. It's like really sedentary. So that's where a lot of my energy was focused. And also being more engaged in my home, with my husband, my little scary Scorpio, because some of the feedback I get, from the fam is, you're always distracted. You're always thinking about, I'm thinking about the podcast. I think about my tarot business. And I'm kind of a one-woman show. So yeah, I've been distracted for a better part of 2 years. And during that time, I decided to really, really, really focus there. I'm renovating the main level of my house. So that means throughout all of it, I am floor washing, smoke cleansing, doing protection work. I'm making offerings to my house spirits and my ancestors. I'm doing work to, speed up the actual work that's being done, and doing work to try to remove obstacles there. Like everything doesn't have to be gigantic or so impressive or necessarily to harm. And I just want to encourage y'all to do that. And I also want to say, like, be patient. Seriously, I am only just now really receiving and seeing benefits of a spell I initiated over a year ago, in dedication to me getting my nutrition and my dance practice and my movement medicine back in order. That was over a year and a half ago. But here I am. So take your time, be patient, trust your own good sense, and always, always, always keep praying for discernment. And in the meanwhile, and as you walk along, the new Hoodoo is always here for you. I want y'all to look out for a new episode on transformation and today's divine feminine in the next few weeks. It is no secret that Andy and I are both recovering people pleasers, but we still really hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, because I know a lot of y'all did, please subscribe to the show so you'll never miss a single episode. And hey, share it with your other conjure curious homegirls. There are so many ways to stay in touch with us. We love hearing from y'all. Seriously, y'all have made us both cry a couple of times with the reviews that you've left and the amazing, inspiring messages you've left us in our DMs. So I want you to check the show notes below so you can chill with us on social media and be the first to know when we drop exclusive new video content. Thanks so much again for tuning into the new Hoodoo. We are so honored that y'all allow us all up into your lovely ear holes. And until next time, we want you to stay uplifting and venerating your ancestors. Stay rooted in your own wholly unique spiritual practice and never ever forget the divine and the magic that is within you.